Imagine being the personal pilot of the most feared drug lord in history. Imagine trusting a man who built an empire on violence, gold-plated bullets, and a kingdom of cocaine. And imagine being the one man who had the power to take that empire down, simply by speaking a single truth. This is the story of the pilot who betrayed Pablo Escobar, a man who saw the world from above, flying billions of dollars worth of cocaine across borders, through storms, and into the heart of America. A man who witnessed Escobar's transformation from a street smuggler to the king of cocaine, and a man who realized too late that escaping the Medellín Cartel was like trying to outrun a shadow that never leaves your back. But what forces a man to turn against the devil he once served? Money, fear, revenge, or the weight of secrets so big they could destroy a nation? Today, we unravel the darkest betrayal in cartel history, the birth of a flying legend. Long before he became a traitor in Escobar's eyes, the pilot was a hero in someone else's story, a gifted aviator with a talent that felt almost supernatural. Colleagues described him as a man who could land a plane on a dirt road the size of a football field and still walk away smiling. For the Colombian underworld, that skill made him priceless. For Pablo Escobar, it made him irreplaceable. The pilot didn't begin his journey as a criminal. Like many Colombians in the 1970s, he was swallowed by poverty. His dream was simple: fly planes, see the world, earn an honest living. But honest living doesn't feed families in a country torn apart by corruption and violence. So when the Medellín Cartel approached him, offering more money in a single flight than a pilot earned in an entire year, he said yes. That decision changed his life forever. It placed him inside helicopters that carried cartel warlords, inside jets loaded with white powder, and inside the inner circle of Pablo Escobar himself. Pablo Escobar's air empire takes flight. Escobar didn't just create a cartel, he created an aviation machine. The pilot quickly became the backbone of this airborne empire. His job was simple in theory, terrifying in reality. Fly cocaine from Colombia to the Bahamas, Mexico, and the United States using secret airstrips hidden inside jungles and banana fields. Every flight carried millions, every landing was a gamble, and every mistake meant death. The pilot witnessed Escobar's brilliance firsthand. Pablo treated drug smuggling like an engineering problem, designing air routes, buying entire islands, bribing radar operators, and even building his own fleet of planes. Under his leadership, the Medellín Cartel delivered an estimated 80% of the world's cocaine. The pilot wasn't just a worker, he was a trusted confidant. Escobar rewarded loyalty with wealth and punished betrayal with unimaginable cruelty. But for years, the pilot believed Pablo would never turn on him. They were brothers in the sky, brothers in danger, brothers in crime. But loyalty inside the cartel was an illusion, and the pilot was about to discover how fragile that brotherhood truly was. Living in Escobar's shadow. Working for Escobar meant living in a world where the line between life and death became a thin, trembling thread. The pilot described Escobar's presence as a storm made of calm. When Pablo spoke softly, the room shook harder than when he shouted. His smile meant rewards. His silence meant fear. The pilot saw the man behind the myth, someone who adored his children but could wipe out families with a single order. Someone who helped the poor yet turned Medellín into a battlefield. Someone who hugged you like a friend but treated you like a tool. Cartel pilots were rich, driving luxury cars, wearing gold watches, but their wealth came with chains made of fear. Government informants hunted them, rival cartels wanted them dead, and Escobar watched every move they made. The pilot lived with two secrets. He admired Pablo, and he feared him. Every time he stepped into a plane, he wondered if this was the flight that would end in flames, Every time he met Escobar, he wondered if this was the day Pablo suspected him of disloyalty. And paranoia would soon drive him into a betrayal that changed history. The flight that changed everything. It always begins with a single moment, a flight that feels different. For the pilot, that moment arrived on a moonless night over the Caribbean. The plane was heavy, overloaded with cocaine bricks stacked like white bricks of gold. Fuel tanks were stretched to the limit. The weather was turning violent. Radar was unpredictable. Mid-flight, something went wrong. An engine sputtered, the nose dipped. Alarms screamed inside the cockpit. The pilot fought the controls as the plane bucked like a wild animal. He had moments to react. A wrong move meant crashing into the dark sea, disappearing forever with millions of Escobar's dollars. Somehow, he landed on a remote strip in the Bahamas. The cargo survived, but the pilot knew Escobar would ask one question: why? Any technical failure could be interpreted as sabotage, and in the cartel, suspicion was a slow-acting poison. After that night, the pilot realized he was living on borrowed time. If Escobar no longer trusted him, death was guaranteed. The only way to save himself might be the unthinkable: betraying the most dangerous man alive. Cracks in the Brotherhood. Escobar began questioning everyone. Government raids were increasing. Informants were leaking information. Planes were getting intercepted, and the pilot was suddenly flying less. Invitations to Escobar's private meetings stopped. Smiles turned into cold stares. The pilot sensed the shift instantly. In the cartel, silence was louder than gunfire. Pablo didn't accuse him, not yet, but he watched him like a predator. Cartel security followed him. His phone was tapped. Even family members noticed strangers near their homes. The pilot's once golden life began collapsing. Friends whispered warnings. Pablo is testing you. Someone told him you talked to the Americans. Be careful, he killed a man last week over a rumor. Fear became his permanent companion. He couldn't sleep, he couldn't trust anyone, and he definitely couldn't stay loyal. The pilot understood a brutal truth. In Escobar's world, you never waited to be killed, you acted first. And the only organization powerful enough to protect him was the one Escobar hated most. The DEA makes its move. The United States had been hunting Pablo Escobar for years. They needed insiders, people who could expose flight routes, drop zones, cartel hideouts, and laundering methods. Pilots were the crown jewels of intelligence, and the DEA knew it. The moment the pilot came under suspicion, he became a perfect target for recruitment. At first, he refused to talk. Fear of Escobar outweighed fear of prison, but the DEA agents were patient. They showed him pictures, cartel pilots who mysteriously disappeared. Burned plane wreckage, families relocated under witness protection. They painted a future where he didn't exist unless he cooperated. The pilot finally broke. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was guilt, maybe it was the feeling that Escobar would kill him no matter what he did. His betrayal began with a whisper, a single route, one airstrip location, one detail that seemed harmless, but that whisper would grow into a hurricane that hit Escobar harder than any bullet. Feeding the DEA, the slow betrayal. The pilot didn't dump all his secrets at once. He played a dangerous game, giving the DEA enough to protect himself, but not enough for them to lose interest. He fed them information. Meanwhile, Escobar noticed something terrifying. His perfect empire was no longer perfect. Planes disappeared, raids hit the right locations, millions in cargo vanished. Someone was talking. The cartel began interrogations. Men were tortured. Innocent workers were executed. But no one suspected the pilot, yet. He was still Pablo's trusted flyer. This was the calm before the storm. And storms inside the Medellín Cartel were deadly. Escobar discovers the truth. Rumors eventually reached Escobar. Whispered fragments, suspicious coincidences, strange timing. By late 1980s, Pablo Escobar became convinced. Someone from his aviation circle was betraying him. He ordered surveillance. He interrogated lieutenants. He even grounded flights. But the final confirmation came when a DEA operation seized one of Pablo's biggest shipments, an operation only a handful of people knew about. The pilot was one of them. Escobar didn't explode in anger. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He simply nodded and said nothing. That silence was a death sentence. Cartel hitmen were dispatched to watch the pilot. Pablo planned to make his execution a message to the entire cartel, a slow, painful spectacle. The pilot heard the news through one of Escobar's bodyguards who still admired him. That warning saved his life. He had only hours to escape, hours to leave his homeland, hours to turn his betrayal into survival, and his next decision would shock both the DEA and Pablo Escobar. The Great Escape. The pilot didn't run through airports or highways. He escaped the same way he lived, through the sky. Under the cover of darkness, he stole one of the very planes he once used for Escobar's drug runs. It was poetic and suicidal. Cartel guards spotted him. Shots rang out. Bullets pierced the fuselage, but the plane took off, barely clearing the tree line. As the wheels lifted, the pilot finally understood the gravity of his choice. He wasn't fleeing a cartel. He was fleeing an entire world. Flying low to avoid radar, he crossed into Caribbean airspace, knowing the DEA was waiting for him. He radioed a coded message only they would recognize. Moments later, U.S. agents escorted him to safety. The price? Everything. His name, his homeland, his family, his identity, erased overnight. But Escobar would not forgive. Not now. Not ever. Witness of the century. The pilot became one of the DEA's most valuable informants. His knowledge reshaped the entire war on drugs. He identified hideouts, partners, corrupt officers, flight corridors, details the U.S. government had chased for years. The courtrooms fell silent when he spoke. Judges leaned in. Prosecutors built entire cases around his testimony. His evidence crippled the Medellín Cartel's aviation network. It cost Escobar millions. It exposed dozens of cartel members. It forced Pablo to rely on riskier routes and inexperienced flyers, mistakes that would later contribute to his downfall. But the pilot lived in constant fear. Even under protection, he changed locations every few months. Cartel assassins were known to strike anywhere, even inside the United States. He slept with the lights on. He avoided windows. He never used his real name again. He had betrayed Escobar, but the psychological scars were permanent. The downfall of the king of cocaine. When Escobar was finally killed in 1993, celebrations erupted worldwide. But for the pilot, emotions were more complicated. Pablo had been his employer, his enemy, his brother in danger, and the man whose trust he destroyed. Escobar's empire crumbled quickly after his death. Air routes were gone, fortune was lost, former allies fled. The Medellín Cartel dissolved into smaller, weaker factions. The pilot watched all of this from afar, hidden behind a new identity. He wondered if betrayal was justice or survival. He wondered what Pablo would have done if he were in the pilot's shoes. He wondered if this ending was inevitable for both of them. In interviews years later, the pilot admitted he didn't feel pride in what he did. He felt relief, sadness, and a strange nostalgia for the sky he once ruled. But he knew one thing. His betrayal helped end one of the deadliest criminal empires in modern history. A life lived in shadows. Even after Escobar's death, the pilot never returned home. Cartels don't forget, families don't forgive, and old loyalties still haunt him. He aged behind new names and new documents in a country that never felt like his own. Some nights he dreamed of flying again, but not as a criminal. As the young man he once was, free and fearless, untouched by Pablo Escobar's world. Other nights he dreamed of the jungle airstrips, the rumble of plane engines, and the quiet voice of Escobar saying, "Loyalty is everything." But loyalty was the very thing that destroyed him. The pilot is alive today, somewhere. His real name is erased. His story remains hidden in classified files. His voice lives only through whispers, memoirs, and the shadows he once escaped. He did what no one else dared. He betrayed the king of cocaine and survived. Ending. So what do we make of the man who betrayed Pablo Escobar? Was he a coward who saved himself? A hero who helped end a global drug empire? Or simply a survivor caught inside a world no one escapes clean? His story forces us to confront a difficult truth. In the kingdom of criminals, loyalty is a trap, and betrayal is sometimes the only road to freedom. This man risked everything, not for glory, not for justice, but for survival. And in doing so, he helped take down the most feared drug lord on earth. If you want more deep dive documentaries like this, stories hidden behind sealed documents, forgotten witnesses, and the darkest corners of history, then make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next cinematic documentary. And tell us in the comments, do you think the pilot was a hero or a traitor? Your voice shapes the documentaries we uncover next.